The F-4 Phantom is a formidable fighter jet. It pushed boundaries, defended the countries for as long as it served. But for one country in particular, the Phantom wasn't enough. It was good, but not that good. It started getting shot down because the war had changed. But Israel didn't stop flying the Phantom. They didn't replace it. They did what everybody in their place would do. They modified it to such an extent that it would fit their every need on the battlefield. This is how Israel took the F-4 Phantom and turned it into the Kurnass. Israel's need for an aircraft like the F-4 Phantom became clear in the aftermath of 1967, during what would soon escalate into the War of Attrition. This conflict would become a turning point, not just politically but technologically. During the War of Attrition, Egypt was heavily backed by the Soviet Union, which helped construct dense, layered surface air-to-missile belts along the Suez Canal. These weren't static defenses. They were constantly expanding, adapting, and improving. When Israel introduced the F-4 Phantom into service in 1969, it was immediately thrown into combat. The Phantom began flying deep strike missions into some of the most heavily defended airspace in the world. On paper, the aircraft seemed perfect for the job. Fast, powerful, and capable of carrying enormous payloads. But combat quickly exposed a harsh reality. Losses mounted, and it became clear that speed and altitude were no longer enough. The F-4 Phantom wasn't weak, it was visible, trackable, and vulnerable in an environment dominated by radar-guided missiles and rapidly evolving air defenses. Israel realized it had to change its entire approach to air combat. Unlike air forces built around peacetime deterrence, Israel was now fighting continuous, high-intensity wars against enemies who were learning and adapting just as fast. Soviet-supplied SAM systems, changing radar tactics, and mobile launchers meant that aircraft had to survive first and strike second. This is where the F-4E Phantom Kurnass began to evolve. Israel modified the aircraft with improved electronics, radar warning systems, and electronic warfare systems, specifically tailored to counter Soviet SAM tactics. These changes transformed the Phantom from a brute force strike aircraft into a systems-driven combat platform, capable of penetrating defended airspace, adapting quickly on the battlefield, and executing long-range deep strike missions under constant threat. The Phantom hadn't failed Israel. War had simply forced Israel to remake it. The F-4 Phantom was already one of the most advanced fighter aircraft of its time. It combined twin engines, a powerful radar, and a heavy, flexible weapons payload, giving it true multi-role capability long before that term became standard. But when Israel began modifying the Phantom, the goal wasn't to chase higher speeds or better climb rates. It was to make the aircraft survive in one of the most dangerous airspaces on Earth. To understand why these changes mattered, you have to look at the environment the Phantom was flying into. By the early 1970s, the Middle East was saturated with SA-2, SA-3 and SA-6 surface-to-air missile systems, arranged in dense, layered air defense networks. These systems were radar-guided, mobile and constantly improving, and they were designed specifically to kill aircraft like the F-4. To survive, the Kurnass had to see the threat before the threat could see it. Israel equipped the aircraft with Israeli-developed radar warning receivers, improved jamming systems, and additional chaff and flare dispensers. These upgrades transformed the Phantom from a fast target into a survivable strike platform, capable of operating inside heavily defended airspace rather than skirting around it. Survivability alone wasn't enough. The aircraft also had to find its way through those defenses. Avionics and navigation systems were extensively upgraded, with Israeli-made low-level navigation equipment and improved attack computers. Israeli Phantom missions often involved long-range deep strikes, low-altitude penetration, and night or bad weather operations, conditions the original aircraft was not optimized for. These changes made the Kurnass more accurate, more flexible, and far less dependent on perfect visibility or ideal conditions. The Phantom was also transformed into a weapons platform tailored to Israel's needs. Israeli F-4s were integrated with Israeli and non-standard weapon loadouts, serving two critical purposes. First, Israel could field its own weapons, designed to counter specific regional threats. Second, it reduced reliance on foreign supply chains, which could be interrupted or restricted during wartime. That same philosophy extended beyond weapons. Structural and maintenance practices were adapted to allow local repairs, reinforcements, and rapid turnaround. Israel needed aircraft that could fly often, be repaired quickly, and return to combat with minimal delay. The Kurnass was flown hard, but it was kept operational through constant adaptation on the ground as well as in the air. One of the most important adaptations was the creation of dedicated reconnaissance variants of the Phantom. Israel places enormous emphasis on real-time intelligence, and reconnaissance Phantoms were equipped with Israeli cameras and sensors, offering high-resolution, combat-proven imagery. These aircraft were used to map enemy air defenses, assess battle damage, and directly shape future strike planning. In Israel's hands, the F-4 Phantom became more than a fighter or a bomber. It became a system, built to see, survive, adapt, and strike again. From the War of Attrition through Lebanon, Israel's F-4 Phantom spent its entire service life in near-continuous combat. Few Western fighter aircraft were tested as relentlessly or adapted as aggressively as the F-4E Kurnass. During the Yom Kippur War, the Phantom became one of the backbones of the Israeli Air Force, flying strike, interception, and reconnaissance missions under some of the most dangerous conditions Israeli pilots had ever faced. Losses were heavy, but the aircraft's ability to absorb upgrades and Israel's willingness to keep evolving it ensured that the Phantom remained operational and relevant even as the battlefield changed. The Kurnass continued to serve through the Lebanon conflicts, where it operated in an airspace shaped by lessons learned over decades of war. By this point, the Phantom was no longer just a platform, it was a battle-tested system refined through real combat rather than theory. Even after the introduction of newer and more advanced aircraft such as the F-15 and F-16, the Phantom did not disappear. Instead, it shifted roles. The Kurnass continued to fly secondary strike missions, reconnaissance, and advanced training, proving that its value extended far beyond frontline air-to-air combat. What made the F-4E Phantom remarkable wasn't that it outperformed newer jets. It didn't. It was that it remained useful. Decades after its introduction, the Phantom was still delivering intelligence, carrying weapons, and training the next generation of pilots. In Israeli service, the F-4 Phantom proved a rare truth of modern air warfare. An aircraft's legacy isn't defined by when it enters service, but by how long it can adapt, survive, and fight. The F-4 Phantom didn't arrive in Israel as the right aircraft. It arrived as a powerful one, built for a different kind of war. Combat exposed its limits, so Israel changed it. Not to make it faster, not to make it prettier, but to make it survive. Every modification was a response to a real threat. Every upgrade was written in combat losses and hard lessons. The result wasn't a new aircraft. It was a Phantom that could adapt, endure, and keep fighting. So no, the F-4 Phantom wasn't a bad jet. But for Israel, it wasn't finished. And by finishing it, Israel turned the Phantom into something rare in modern air warfare. A machine that learned how to stay alive. Until next time, fly high and stay curious.